Cross-platform development is a very hot topic nowadays, and we have few options in market to build applications. Among them, Flutter has gained immense popularity within a short period of time. But before directly jumping into Flutter, we must know the fundamentals of Dart programming. Dart is developed by Google, and it's just like any other programming language such as C, JavaScript, with basic concept which we will discuss shortly. So without wasting any more time on the theoreticals, let's start learning step by step. The first thing we have to do is to install Dart. There is a Dart SDK which you can install separately, but in this session we will be using the online Dart pad, because later on when we will be learning Flutter and installing all the Flutter tools, then that will be installed automatically. So we don't have to do it separately right now. And Dart pad is just an online tool to develop and write the Dart codes. For that, you can just go to your browser and type Dart pad and see, here it is. You write the code in the left hand side, and in the right hand side the output will be there. If I click on the run button, you can see this hello 1234. This is a kind of for loop which we will discuss later on. So if we say what are the basics of Dart language, the very basic is the entry point, which is the main function. Here you can see this main function is the entry point of the code, which simply means if we execute the code, whatever that is written inside this main function will be executed at first. If the thing are written here, it won't work until and unless it's a function and we call it inside the main function. So to output anything, we use the print statement. Here you can see, if I remove this and just like print Flutter is awesome and run, then you can see it's printing. So simply, if you are coming from any PHP or any other programming language, you know this print statement is very common in most of the languages. And also, strings need quotes but integer don't, which simply implies if I'm writing print 2021, then it doesn't need any double quotes or single quotes. But if it's a string that is alphabets, then definitely it requires quotes. Now we know what is the entry point, what is the print statement. The next thing we have to understand is the comments. In any programming language, comment will be there. It's like to understand what's going on in the functions. Comments are just for reference and don't get executed. What that means is if I write here the next statement will print out string and then run it, you won't see this statement in the console because it's a comment. Now, comments are usually used so that in future when you are looking back into the code, it's very easy to you for you to understand it and don't get confused later on. So this is the very basic, and I don't think so it's that much of a hectic. In the next session, we will learn more about what are variables and what are data types. We will learn about what are variables and data types. If you are coming from any engineering background or any BCA type degree, you might have heard these terms there. It's the very basic of any programming language. What basically is a variable? Variables are used to store information to be referenced and manipulated later. That means if you have any name, suppose Flutter, then you just store it in a variable language. Language is equal to Flutter, and whenever you want to output that Flutter, you just use that language word. keyword, you can say. Now, what are data types? In Dart, there are some built-in data types, that is numbers, strings, booleans, list, and map. List are arrays. In PHP, it's called arrays, and here it's called list. The concept is the same. And also maps. Maps is just a key value pair, like dictionary in a Python language or multidimensional array in PHP. So there is nothing new in Dart language. Everything is just the same. It's just you have to refresh your memory here. Now, the thing is how to declare a variable. This is the pattern. First is the data type, second is the variable name, and there is an equal sign which equals the value. Now, this age has a data type of integer, that is 25, 30, whatever. And this age has a data type of var, that is variable, which simply implies that we don't know what it will hold. It may have integer, it may have string. But here, if I try to write something like Flutter string, it will show an error because the data type is given integer. And remember, Flutter or Dart is a statically typed language. That means most of the time you will specify what data type the variable or the function will hold. This is the main thing. You just don't ever forget that if we have assigned an data type, then the variable must hold that value. Now, each and every data type we will discuss step by step, one by one. But in the next video, let's practice only these numbers, which will be integer and double, and this string. I have this basic example. Here we are using the example of the movie Avengers. If you haven't watched the movie, it's fine. But I guess most of us are Marvel fans. Though you might have heard about this name, Iron Man and all. Let's bring out our dartpad and remove whatever is there in the main function and start from the very beginning. In the earliest session, we have heard about the comments which we will use now. Here it's like declaring variables. Then now it's time to declare our first variable. The first thing we have to write is the data type. It will be int. Then the name of the variable, it will be score, which will equal to 3000. So simply we have completed our task of declaring a variable. Now suppose this is an integer, but what happens there if there is a decimal value? Suppose 30.5 or whatever, if you have a pi value and all. In that case, the data type will be double. Double percentage is equal to 92.5. You just say, you can write whatever you want. Then, if you want to have any string, then it will write string hero is equal to Iron Man. If you have any other hero of your own, you can just write it down. No issue. And villain will be Thanos. Okay. We have declared successfully our four variables here. Now it's time to print them. So just remember, for printing, we have learned that we have to use the print statement. And this print statement will only print the value in the console. So when you are building a real Flutter application, if you use this print, don't expect that the UI or the screen of the mobile application will output the value. Only the value is available for the debug or the developer usage. So if you want, you just print score, then you can print percentage, then it's hero, and then print villain. You run the program, and I hope yes, we got the output. It's like 3000, it's the integer, percentage is 92.5, hero Iron Man, and then Thanos. So just I guess it's clear with you the concept of variables and the data types, and we have successfully understood numbers and string data types. We will know more about strings. Earlier, we have used the string data type, but in this video, we will just know the definitions and few concepts. So, what is string? Strings are just collection of characters, or you can say alphabets. We can declare a string with both single and double quotes. It's like string name is equal to Flutter. Here we are using single quotes. Here you can use also double quotes. But the problem arises when there is something like it's easy or something which has quote within the quote. So you can say if I have this war name is equal to a Elon. Now it will show an error because you have single quotes within single quotes. To solve this issue, you have to either use backslash or write single quotes within double quotes to avoid any error. Here, backslash here, you have to just simply use this and the error will be gone. If I now run the program, you can see the output will be there. And if you want, you can just simply use remove the backslash and use double quotes in the outside. Then also your program will run smoothly. So this situation might happen while you are building an application that you have something like it's theirs or whatever. You just have to remember that you cannot use single quotes within single quotes or double quotes within double quotes. So we know how to declare string. Now what is the string interpolation? This is also very simple. It's like combination of variables and strings. Usually in any other programming language, we can combine variables and strings like this. That is var name is equal to Rahul, print my name is, and then plus symbol and the variable name. This is also correct in Dart, but not recommended. Dart prefers to write variables inside the double quotes by using dollar before the variable name. I will show you by doing it. Suppose the variable is hero. I have to write my hero is and then Iron Man. For that, I have to use this dollar sign and then the variable name. And if I run the program, see, my hero is Iron Man. It's the string interpolation. Earlier, we were just printing out variables, but definitely in the real world applications, you have to use something like welcome guest. Guest will be variable, and then if the user logs in, then that guest name will change to the user's username. So that is why the string interpolation is a very crucial topic. Now, within the quotes, that is, we can output using this dollar symbol. But what if there is some kind of functions or like addition or getting length? In that case, you have to use dollar and this curly braces. You can see the example here, and we will also do it on our own. I'm just removing all this just for the simplicity, like int length is equal to 20 and then int breadth is equal to 10. Now, if I want to do some kind of calculation with the variables, then I have to write sum is dollar, then this parenthesis, and inside that length breadth. Yep. Now if I run, it will simply sum is 30. See, but you cannot do like this and this. If you try to do using only the dollar sign, it will just print it. Sum is 20 plus 30. but it doesn't do the calculation portion. So you have to remember this while building an application, because there will be a lot of times where you have to do some kind of functions, or you might have to get the length of the array. In that case, this dollar and curly braces is used. If you want, you can just try some more example by creating, like, there is area, there is parameter, there's lot of mathematical calculations. If you want, you can just practice on your own. That's it. This concept is done. This is the very basic concept of string. What are constants in that language? So when we hear the word constants, the first thing that came to our mind is that the value won't be changed, that the value cannot be changed. It's a constant value. So within the constants, there are two keywords. First is final and the second is the const. Now let's start with the const keyword. The definition is very simple. Const is used if the value is known at compile time. You just forget this type of terms. In simple words, while development of the application, we hardcode the value. That is const int marks is equal to 90. Marks, let's try it our own. There will be const int marks is equal to 90. And if you print, you can just print marks. And I will remove the above print statement. Now you can say it's 90. It's the const. That is, if we try to change the value later on, like 50, is marks is equal to 50, there will be an error. Const values cannot be assigned. That is, if the value is fixed, we cannot change it in the later on program. This is the use of const keyword. Now you might be thinking, okay, const A, I get it, but what is this final keyword? It's little bit tricky. It's like, suppose we don't know the value while writing code, but the value will be calculated or fetched from database at runtime. Runtime means when the application is opened. And after that, after the value has been calculated, we don't want the value to be changed after being fetched. So it's like, some from the database there will be the user's age. It will be final age keyword, but once it's fetched from the database, after that the user cannot change that value. So here you cannot try and write it directly. If you just write final string name is equal to Flutter, then also it will work normally. It won't show any error here, because in the end it's a constant. But you will understand more of this concept later on while building a real world application. But here in the example, you can just see the value of pi, that is 3.14, is a constant. In that, we will use the const keyword. But while date is a variable, and if we assign it to date time dot now, this will be a final, because suppose the app opens at 10 o'clock. At that time, the date will be 10 o'clock. It will be fetched once, and after that, that date won't be changed. But that date value hasn't been written, pre-written in the code. We can do it with a very basic example. You can just write int x is equal to 1, y is equal to 2, final a is equal to x, then print a, and here I will write const b is equal to y, print b. Let's see, it will show an error, because we cannot just write something which is not already there. Here, if we are using a const, here the value has to be written like 5. But in the above, final a is equal to x, it's not showing any error, because the final is like, if we run the application, and the value gets inside that final variable, it's okay for it. After that, I cannot change it. Like a is equal to 26. This I cannot do because it's a type of constant. So you can understand this concept here in a very basic manner. If it's a const keyword, then we have to write the value. And if it's a final keyword, then the variable might hold something which will be assigned later on. That's it. We will know about conditional statements. Conditional statements will be there in any programming language: PHP, Python, Java, C, C, Swift, whatever. The concept of conditional statement will always be there. So, what are conditional statements? It's like there will be one condition. If that's true, then do something, or else don't do something. The first conditional statement is if else. You can see here if else. If the condition is true, then run the code, or else run the other code. It's very straightforward. And the second one is if else if. That means if you have multiple conditions. Suppose if age is greater than 18, then they are allowed to drive. If then else if age is greater than 21, then they are allowed to go to clubs and all. And simply in the end else you can just write, please mention your age correctly. It's basically some kind of conditions in your application. And trust me, when you are building any app, real world application, there will be a lot of conditions. If you see Facebook, you can just see if the user has logged in, then show the home page, else show the login page. That's a very good example, I will say. Now, there are some operators as well which we use frequently with if else statements, that is and or. Two conditions can be joined using and or, and both have their own meaning. An operator means both the conditions specified must be true. That is, if age is greater than 18 and person is from Delhi. In that case, there are two conditions which both of them should be satisfied to run the code. And when it comes to the OR operator, it's just like if the person either is greater than 18 or from Delhi, if any one of them is true, then the system can execute the code. You can just get the basic information from here, because right now we will start with an example. Let's do it. Again, I am here using that Avengers scenario so that it will be easy to understand. Let's remove the previous codes and all, and let's start it. Here first, I will be using comments where I'm writing declaring variables below. Now we have used that const keyword earlier. Here I will write const int stones is equal to 6. For your use, I can just write comment like using const so that number of stones cannot be changed. Simple. Then string hero is equal to Iron Man, and string villain is equal to Thanos. Now the new data type here will be Boolean. Boolean is what? You can just say true or false. Boolean is nothing but the two value. Either it will be true or false. So we have this Boolean hero win is equal to true, and again Boolean villain win is equal to false. So, okay, we have successfully declared all the variables needed. There are 5 variables here. Now we will use conditional statements. If our first condition will be if stones less than 6, print you have not collected all the infinity stones. One condition is there. Second condition, if stones are is double equal to 6, that means stones are 6 and villain win is equal to true. That means the villain wins here in this case. We will print by using string interpolation. Villain has all the, again string interpolation, 6 infinity stones. Now we have written two conditions here. The third we can, because in if else you can have multiple conditions. There is no boundary. Again, if stones is equal to 6 and hero win is equal to true, in that case you just simply print hero, which is the Iron Man, has all the 6, which is the stones infinity stones. And finally, in the else statement, you can write hero and villain don't care about the stones. Simple. Now, with your mind, you just think what will be output. Here, stones is 0, 6, and hero win is true. So, first one will be false, second one will be false, third one. So, the output will be Iron Man has all the 6 infinity stones. But if I simply make this one false as well, then it will, the last else will be executed, because not even one of the conditions are satisfied. And i'm this I'm just reminding it again, since stones are constant, you cannot change the stone's value here like this. It will show an error. So I hope you have understood clearly what are conditional statements, and if else is very self explanatory, because if one condition is true, then print it, or else print the other thing. Until now we have discussed few of the data types such as strings, double, booleans as well, but now it's time to discuss list. This is a very important topic because while building an application we will be using this data type, I think, most of the time. Now, what is a list? A list is simply an ordered group of any data type. It is commonly known as arrays in other languages. If you are coming from PHP or anything, or any other programming language, you might have heard the word arrays. So, it simply means earlier when we were declaring any variable, it was holding one value. That is, suppose this villain was holding only Thanos. But what if we want a variable which will contain multiple information of the user? Suppose the name, contact number, age, everything in one variable. In that case, we will be using list. It is very convenient to store and access the data in that way. Now, each element in the list is defined by a unique number called the index. It's very simple. Suppose if you want to access a data from the variable, you just have to remember what index it is in. Obviously, to access anything, we must have some ID. Here, the ID is the index and it starts from 0. Let's start programming. I guess theory you have understood. I will remove the previous thing. To declare a list, we have to mention the data type at first, list. Then simply I will just write marks and the square brackets. So we have successfully declared a list. And you can just see earlier in the above there were string, boolean or integer as well. But this time it's a new data type list. And when I was saying about the index positions, what I mean was, suppose in the list of marks there are multiple values like this. Okay, there are 4 values in this variable, and now this 90 is in the 0 position, 80 is in the 1 position, 60 is in the 2, and 30 is in the 3. So this is the index. Simply you can just say, suppose if I want to access this 90, I simply have to write print marks and the index position 0. Now let's run the program. See, 90, you have this value. Now suppose if you want 30, what index you have to write? It will be 3. Then yeah, then it's 30 is printed. Now the thing is, suppose we have an empty list of age, okay, and we want to assign a value into it, new value, that is, it might be it is empty, but later on we want to assign. In that case, you cannot just directly write age in the 0 position, give 30. This will show an error when we are printing age list. Let's see, try it out. See, uncaught error, range error, which means this is not the correct way to assign the value. But if you want to change the value which is already being assigned, that is in the marks, in the 0 position, you want to write 10 and then print marks list. Let's see what happens. See, 90 has changed to 10, which simply implies you can change the already existing value with this method, but you cannot assign. Now, you might ask me, then how we will assign a value, because marks is already pre-written, but when we are building an application, all those data will be in the real time. In that case, I just have to write age dot and then add. This is a function. This is the, you can say, operations which a list accepts. Age dot add 25 and then I will print out age. See, 25 is there and now it's not showing any error because this is the correct way of adding a value inside the list. Again, if I write age dot add 30 and print it, then it will be 25 and 30. See, so it's a very easy concept and very important because list is the only way when we are fetching a lot of, suppose in an application like Facebook, there will be a lot of users. So all that users might be stored in a list. If you see the slide, I have written that the index starts from 0 and extends up to n minus 1, where n is the total number of elements in the list. What I mean by that is the index here, it starts from 0 and ends at 3, which is the total number of elements in the list minus 1. That is 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 minus 1, 3. Since it starts with 0, the ending will be always the total number of elements minus 1. It's a very important concept of any programming language. Now, we have done this portion where we cannot assign value to an empty list. We have also done this portion as well where already assigned value can be changed like this. Now, there are few operations which can be done in any list. That add portion is done. Now, if you want to remove any element, then it's very easy. It's like list name, which is marks dot remove, and what data you want to remove. I want to remove suppose 25, and then I will print age. It should only display 30. I guess I did a small mistake. It's like when we are removing, we might have to use remove add so that we assign the index. Suppose here I want to remove 0. Okay. So I was removing from the marks and printing age. Why it will show. In the remove, let's do it again. In marks, I want to remove 90 and then print marks here. Let's check out this output. See, 90 is gone. So in this way, we can remove the element if we know the value of the element. But suppose we don't know the value and we just know the index, that is marks dot remove at, and here I will give index as suppose 1 and comment the before remove line. Now the 80 will be removed. See, 10, 60, 30, but 80 is not there. So remove and remove at are two operations which are very important, because definitely when we have inserted any value, if the user wants to delete it, he should have that capability or that feature, you can say. Now the final thing is the length of the list. That is, if we want to get the length, we just write print marks dot length, and I will just stop removing elements. And now let's say I think it will show 4, which I was discussing earlier. That is, this is the n value, and the final element always is the length minus 1. And if you want to print something like this with concatenation, you can do like this: the length of the list is, then dollar. And just remember from the last session, if we want to do any operation, then we have to do dollar and then curly braces and then write marks dot length. I will run it again and see the length of the list is 4. So I just want to give a recap of concatenation because I don't want you to forget the previous concepts as well. So now it's time to learn about the next data type, which is the map. Map is also a very important data type. When we are building a Flutter application, mostly you will use list or map, or you will use map inside list. Right now, if you are getting confused, no issue. So what is a map? A map is a simple key value pair, which means earlier when it was a list, you can just see it was the value, but it doesn't have any name. You can just say it had that index in them from which we can call them, but it didn't have a name. So when the data is very long or when there is a lot of data, it's very difficult to remember the index of the value. In that case, maps are very handy. So let's see what it means. The key will be of string type, but the values in a map may be of any type. That is, key will be suppose name. Then the value can be string, that is Rahul, Flutter, whatever, but also the key name can have 22 or 23 whatever numeric values. So it's not mandatory to use only string as its value. To declare a map, we can use the map constructor, that is this one, or you need to enclose the key value pairs within a curly brackets like this. Let's start by creating our first map. Again, I will remove all this data and start with a clean slate. Now, when we are using a map constructor, you can just write var fruits is equal to map. And after that, in the fruits, you can write apple as the key. Just remember, as the key. And its value will be red. Now, if I print fruits variable, and here var, or also you can use map as a data type, there won't be any error. See this apple and red. Apple is the key and red is the value. So most of the time we don't need this key, we need this value of red. To print that, you simply have to write the map variable name and then the key, which is apple. Now run your program and in the output you will see red. See, this is how we do it. This is how map is being used. Now, again, if we want to add another value of banana with a value of yellow, and again first print the whole map so that you can see how it is being displayed. It's like first key is apple, then the value is red, then comma, second key is banana and value is yellow. Now you might ask me, let's print out yellow value. In that case, first I have to write the map name, then the key, which is banana. A more valid example you can say will be some user's map, and that we will do using map literal. Earlier this is done using map constructor. Now we will declare a map using curly braces directly, which means I have map of user, then here first key will be name Bill Gates, second you can say age. I don't know this exact age, but it will suppose example 80, and third way will be founder, and it will again be a string Microsoft. So here you can see this is how we declare a map. This is also a type of data type which will hold multiple values, like just like list. So now if I want, I will just write print user, and then I will just comment the above lines. See, name Bill Gates, age 80, founder Microsoft. Also, in the same way, if you want, like, print, I will show you how to print a very new, not new, it's like form a sentence, founder of, then for the Microsoft, I will just write founder is, now again I will write user and then name. Here I am using concatenation, and you will learn how to fetch the value from a map. I guess there is some error again. Must end with this. Yep, I know what I did the error here. It's a very basic mistake, nothing much. In programming, you are used to this kind of silly mistakes. Now you get the output founder of Microsoft is Bill Gates. So this is the way how you will output the data in your real application. It's a very important thing to learn. Also, you can also print the length of the map as we done before in the list. It will be 3. That is, there are 3 values. See, 3 values. Other operations includes, suppose user dot, you will see. If I just write user print keys, it will show all the keys, that is name, age, founder, so that if you forgot also, then you can just check it out. And suppose from the keys you want the values, that is, you don't remember any of the keys but you want to fetch all the values, then you have to use a function or operation like user dot for each. That is, it will go through the map with this key value, and you can just write print. If you want value, you can just print the value. I will again comment down the above thing and print and run it. And now you will see Bill Gates, 80, and Microsoft. This is how you loop through the map. And you don't have to take this much stress. In the upcoming sessions, we'll be talking deeply about loops. But right now, our concern was map, and we have learned a lot. The final operation, which is important, obviously there are a lot of operation you can see, but the final, if you can say, it's like remove. If you want to remove a key, you can just write remove, then the key name will be name, and after that if you print, then you won't see Bill Gates here. See, Bill Gates was removed from the map. So that's it. This is the basic concepts. I hope you just understood the basic thing, because to master the list or map, you have to practice it while building a real world application. And what are looping? So if you are coming from any other programming language, I guess you might have heard this for loop or for do while loops and all, because in engineering or any basic programming, this concept will be there. So loops are used to output multiple number of times. That is, the data can be, if we have to write suppose a name 100 times, we won't just print flutter. It will take a lot of time. In that case, we can use loops. And in the end, I will definitely tell you while building a real world application where loops are being used. So loops are of 4 types: for in, while, do while. Let's start understanding it one by one. So what is a for loop? The for loop executes a block of code for a specific number of time, which we mention in the loop. So the syntax is like this. We use for, then brackets, there is parenthesis. Inside that there will be three data. First will be initialization, condition, and what should be done. You might get confused right now. Let's do it practically. I will remove all this thing. Let's start it. Loops. First will be for loop. So suppose I have this for loop syntax. First is initialization. That is int variable I is equal to 0. Then the condition I less than 3. And then what should be done next after this code of block will be executed. Like if I write print, so if I click run, this is how it will done. For I is equal to 0, that is I will be 0. Then it will check the condition. If I value is less than 3, if it's true, then it will go inside and execute this block of code. After the execution of this block of code, then it will go to this step, that is I plus plus, which implies I will become from 0 to 1. Let's run it. See, 0, 1, 2. It doesn't go forward, that is after 2, 3, because there is this condition. So this is a very basic thing, but most of the time we will be using loops while dealing with list or map. So I will write list marks is equal to again 50, 30, 20, 10. Then I will write for int I is equal to 0. I will be less than the length of the list, which will be 4, and I plus plus. And now if I want to print out, then I will just write the list name and the index, which will start from 0 because we have mentioned it here. So if you want, you can just pause and understand it again, because int I is 0. It will check if I is less than the length, which is 4. If yes, then it will print that value in the list of that index. First will be 0, that is 50. After that, it will do this step I plus plus 1, and then again the same thing will happen. Let's see the output. You can see the output 50, 30, 20, 10. So the loop is very powerful. And while building a real world application, you will be using loops all the time, because the data which will be coming from the database will be in the form of an array or a list. So you have understood this for loop. Now the next loop is for in loop. So you might be thinking, why this for in loop? The for in loop is used to loop through a list or a map. It is being used most of the time. Just because this looping through the list is so common, so there is this specific kind of loop where we don't have to mention like the initialization or this step and all, because it's a waste of time if we already know what we have to do. So I will comment the above for, and here let's write this. And for in way of writing loop goes like var mark, that this is a simple variable in marks, and then print mark. See, the output is same, but the code looks so much cleaner than above, because it's simply it's doing what? it is assigning this mark variable to the first element, second element, and then printing it automatically. And this for loop inbuilt knows that it should loop through the length of the list. It should not exceed. So it's a very common practice of using for loop in the real world application. I guess you have understood it. This for in can be used in maps as well. You have seen list, but let's try map. Var user is equal to key will be Rahul, age will be suppose 25, and then second will be Pratik, this is another name, and age will be say 30. Now if you want to loop through this map, you simply will write for var, this is the any variable name, in marks dot entries. So this is something you have to remember. Let's see, I guess there are so many operations you can do. Let's print and see what it outputs. Data dot. If I just write data, let's see, it shows an error or anything. Sorry, I have to write user. This was again silly mistake. So this user, if we are using a map, then you have to write entries. This you have to remember by heart, because map is a different type of data type. And then you can just write data dot key and print. If you want value, then data dot value. Let's run it. See, Rahul 25, Pratik 30. So just imagine this user right now it's containing only two data. But if you have an application like Facebook and there are crores or lakhs and whatever number of data, it's impossible for you to write everyone by their keys. In that case, we will be using looping. Now, more of the looping you will understand while we are building a Flutter application. Right now, you just understand the concept. Two loops are being done. The next one is the while loop. While loop also does the same job. It is not like very different. It also loops through the elements. We mostly use while loop when we don't know how many times the loop will actually execute. Here in example, we know the limit, that is while number less than this. But suppose music is being played, and until and unless user presses the stop button, the music should continue playing. This is a good example. So let's do it through the while loop as well. I will comment it. Then I will just write int number is equal to 0 while number less than 10, print number, and number plus plus, that is incremented. It's nothing new, it's same as the for loop. See, the way of writing is different. For loop is being written like this and while is like this. So the final loop is the do while. Do while loop is different from while loop because in the while loop, first the condition was checked and then after code of block was executed. But in do while, first the code is executed at least once and then the condition will be checked. Let's try it with the same example. Int is number is 0, so we will just say do print number, but the condition will be number greater than 1. So just imagine here the condition is false. So if we were using this while loop, it shouldn't print. But since we are using do while, you check the output. See, 0. It is being printed once. In if I write here number plus plus as well, then also the condition is false. But this code of block will be executed. So do while is not being used much. Matlab, it's like I haven't used do while building my applications. Most of the time we are dealing with for loop. So it's up to you which type of loop you want to use in your application. What are break and continue statement? Break and continue statements are used with loops, any kind of loops. And what it does, we will just see. Because with the word break only, you can understand that it terminates the loop. Let's try it with the example. I will just remove this and just write break statement. Now, if we have a for loop like for var I is equal to 0, I less than 5, I plus plus. I hope you have understood this loop because in the last chapter we have already discussed this. Here I can write print I and you will definitely see the output as same from 0 to 4. But what if I will have a condition here like if I is equal to 2 then break. So this will simply mean that if the number goes to 2, it should terminate and then execute the code below. Let's run it and see it will be only 0 and 1. After that, process is being terminated and the code will run down below. But when it comes to continue statement, continue will only skip that code in the loop, but it will not terminate the whole code. Suppose I have here print flutter. First it will go 0 1, then it terminates and execute the below code. But if I write down here continue and all the code will be same, just I will be using continue and then run it. See, there is a lot of different than break because only when it was 2 it the code was terminated, but it doesn't goes out of this for loop. It just check the condition again and print the rest of the code, and then only it will go and execute all the codes below. So this is a very basic but important concept because you will have to use continue or for statement in your application whenever required. So I hope I have cleared your doubt. You if you want you can just try it again with some more examples. If you want you can just write use a list, then loop through it and then try using break or if else. It's up to you because when we are learning any programming language, it's better we practice and try to get errors as well so that it will be beneficial for us for the future. We will be talking about a very important topic. So, if you have any interest in programming, you might have come through the word function. Functions will be there either you are working in Dart, PHP, C, whatever. You have to understand the concept of functions. So, what is a function? Function is just a collection of code or statements grouped together to perform a task. So when we are writing codes here, Suppose this is just a very basic code. That's why we can write it in the same file. But what if there will be 100 lines of code or 100 functions to execute or 100 tasks to execute? In that case, we have to make use of functions so that we will declare the function somewhere else and call it here or call it in multiple times wherever we want. So let's start. I will remove and clean everything. It will be like functions. So here you can see the syntax of a basic function. It consists of return type, optional, but it's recommended. Return type means what the function will return at the end. The second is function name. So it's just a kind of a variable name, you can say, because obviously to call a function you have to give it a name. And the third thing is parameter or arguments. That is what value we are sending to the function while we are calling it. So right now you might get confused, but no need to panic. We will understand it slowly step by step. And when I was saying return type, sometimes the function may not return anything. In that case, we use void as a return type. So if you heard this word void, you might think, wait, I have seen it somewhere. So if you just go to the code here, this is also a function. That is the main function with return type of void. So it's very weird that from the very early, from the very beginning, we were working with functions, but we didn't know it because this is the entry point. That's why we didn't discuss it earlier. But right now, you can see it's the same syntax, that is return type, function name, and then parentheses and curly braces. This is how we declare a function. Now the theory is done. Let's write the way of writing a function, because there are different ways for different purposes. The first way is function without passing arguments. That means we are not passing any arguments toward the function, and arguments were these values. Let's try it ourselves. I will just write first function without passing argument and return type. That is, this function is not returning anything. So I will declare it like void. Let's do some mathematical thing. Find parameter, and then in the function we can have variables or some executable codes, whatever we want. So I will just first declare a variable of integer 4. Then second will be bit of integer 2. Then now let's do the calculation. That is, parameter will be a variable which will be holding this calculation 2 into L plus B. That is length plus breadth. Okay. And then we will just print here the perimeter is, and then concatenation. Okay, so here we have successfully declared a function. Now I told you, if we have a function we have to call it. So how we will call it? We will just simply write find parameter, that is the function name, and parentheses. That's it. And now let's run the program. See, the parameter is 12, that is 4 plus 2 is 6, and 6 into 2 is 12. So this is the first way of writing a function which doesn't have any return type and which is not getting any argument. That is, the values are being returned inside the function. Okay, I hope you have understood till now, because now we are going to the next way of writing a function, which is function with arguments. As the name suggests, here we will be passing the argument when we are calling the function. So let's suppose here, for declaring the parameters, I will write first the data type of the parameter, that is int length, and then second will be int breadth. Now, if we are passing the value, then we don't have to declare the value inside the function. So I will remove it from here. Now the declaration part is done. But if we are calling a function, then here it's showing this error, because you can just see in the error two positional arguments expected. That is, we have to pass the value. The first I will just pass 5, and then second also 5, that is length and breadth. Now let's see again the output. See, the parameter is 20. So what it will be? It will be function with passing argument. It's very simple, but I hope you have understood, because this is the very core concept of the programming. Without this, you won't be able to understand further on. So I will suggest you, if you have any doubts, you just also research on your own and try to go deeper inside the concept. Now let's move on to the third, which is function with argument and a return type. So simply we will just write the third way, function with argument and return type. So as the name itself suggests, that will have argument like this, and it will have a return type. So now the return type won't be here void, it will be int. Now you can see the error. The body might be complete normally, but it's returning null because it's not returning any value. So what we have to do, we won't print it inside the function. We will just return the parameter value. See, the error is gone. So here we have a return type of integer, since both the value are integer, and after calculation it becomes an integer. That's it. Now if we are returning a value, we have to catch it somewhere. So here I will just write int result is equal to find parameter. Now the result variable will consist of the calculated value sent by the function. So now if we want, we can simply print here like the result is, then here now we have to write result parameter variable, because we are storing it by its this name. And also if you want, you can do some more calculations further on, like int final total is equal to result plus, can just write 200, and then here again print final result after, so after adding is, then find total. Okay, it's showing some error. Let's, okay, final total, sorry. Okay, now let's run the program. It should be, first will be 5 plus 5 10 20, and then second will be obviously plus 100 120. So we do this return type normally so that we can have some more calculations afterwards. It's like after when a user when we try to get the age of a user, After getting the age, we might do some calculations. Let's see, suppose here it's a function int user age. Okay, and simply here we will just write return 20, suppose. Now, what if we want to first int get user age is equal to user age, and after getting the user age we will do some calculations, like if get user age is less than 18, print he cannot drive, else print allowed to drive a car. Now let's comment this, and now let's run, and I hope you know what the result will be. It will be the else, because we are getting 20 when we are calling the function, and then from the if else statement which we have already learned, we see if the user is legally allowed to drive a car or not. So this is a very basic use. Obviously, when we are building complete application, we will have some more advanced usage of these functions. Now, the final another way of writing a function, you can just say shorthand syntax or fat arrow, which means if our function body contains only one line of code, then we can use this arrow and this kind of arrow symbol, you can just say an equal and greater than, to declare the function and make it look short. So it's just a way to clean our code. And also in the notes section you can read, in fat arrow notation we don't use the curly braces and also don't use return keyword. So there is a lot to digest again. Here let's try with this int fat arrow syntax. Here we have a, we are just returning, or you can say we have just one line of code. So first thing it was told that we have to remove the curly braces. Okay, we removed it. And second, we don't have this return statement. Okay, and instead of that we will have this arrow. See, it is looking so cool and so clean. And now again I will just change the value to 17, and let's see what is the output. See, he cannot drive, which simply means the function is doing the same as before, but with this shorthand syntax it looking cleaner and it's easier to read. That is just return 17, and there is this return type as well, which is an integer. And if you want here as well, you can do these changes. First I will remove the curly braces, then I will remove this turn, and simply here I will write arrow and this one line of code. That is, after calculating it will directly return to whatever it's calling. I will comment down and do it this again, and I hope the result will be same as before. See, the result is 20. After final result after adding is 120. So earlier it was looking very messy, but with the shorthand syntax it's getting better. So I hope you have understood the basics of function. Now it's time to get deeper into parameters and its types. So earlier we have learned how to declare a function and how it accepts a parameter. But there are different ways to accept a parameter. In the diagram you can see parameter are of two types, optional and required. By the name only you can understand that if it's required, then you have to pass the argument or else it will show an error. And when it's optional, then there are also three types of optional, that is positional, named, and default. So we will understand each and every one step by step. So let's get started. First, we will understand what are required parameters. Let's bring our code editor and create a function named print name, and suppose it accepts arguments like string name1, string name2, string name3. Okay, and I will just print out the names like name1 and name2 and name3. Okay, we have our function ready. Now it's time to call it like print name. But if we directly call it like this, it will show an error because it's a required parameter type, which means we have to send the value. I will just send Hulk, Iron Man, and Spider Man. Let's see the output. Okay, you can see all those are printed. So it's very basic, and we have done this earlier as well. But you have to understand what it is called, and it is called a required parameter type. Now, the second type is optional, and within optional, we will be understanding what is a positional optional parameter. So, to make a parameter optional, we use this brackets, square brackets, and positional means this Hulk will be in the first position, that is string name 1. This Iron Man will be in the second position, that is name 2. Because this is the order how it's written here. See, if I change the order like Spider-Man here and Iron Man here, so this output will be changed because it is positionally decided which one is where. Now, if I want to make this name 3 optional, that is, I don't want it, if it's not sent, then also it's fine. Like this, we have to use this square bracket. But there is showing an error because it's showing that the parameter name3 can't have a value of null because of its type, and its type is string. So in the latest version, Dart has introduced something called null safety, which simply means if any variable variable or function can return or accept a value which can be null, in that case in that case you have to declare the data type as nullable, which can be done with the expression question mark, which simply means if I have this string and I just insert a question mark here, that means this value, this variable can contain a null as well, which in our case is true. Now, if I run the program, see Hulk and Spider Man and null, because we haven't passed the value. So here this concept is very also very important because when you are asking a value from the user, you many of the fields may be optional. Suppose what interest, or what age you are, or how much money you earn. The user may or may not want to fill those forms. So in that case, you can have those variables as optional. And just remember, this null safety is recently introduced. So if you are watching any video tutorial, which is suppose 6 months or 1 year back, so there this question mark is not being introduced, so you might get some errors. And here down you can see the null safety is on, because it's default in the Flutter framework. So I this is optional parameter type. Now I have explained everything here. Now the next is named parameter. Now this is little interesting. Earlier we were just using positional parameters, because there were very few arguments which we were passing. But suppose we have lot of parameters, then it will be very difficult to remember their positions. That is, in the one position its name, in the second position its age, in the third position its city. It's not always feasible to remember all those. So in that case, we use name parameters, and here we will be using curly braces. We learned to use square braces, but now we will use curly braces, and simply I will create a new function which will be named parameter. Okay, I will write int find volume, and then in the parameter I will simply write curly braces, and then int length, int breadth, and I will write print. I will not print here, I will just return length into breadth. And if I want height as well, because it's the volume, I will declare another parameter of height. Now you might be seeing some errors. I will explain you what's that. Because here the parameter becomes optional by default. So you have to use null safety within the curly braces. So in name parameters, the values becomes optional. That is, it can be null. So we have to use null safety, which is very simple. Just simply use question mark, question mark, question mark. But if you are using the question mark, here it will show some errors as well, because we cannot do calculation. We cannot do this kind of calculations here if the value is null. So in that case, I will just check. Let's try and check if length not equal, if a length equal to null and breadth equal to null and height equal to null, then return. Again, there is error. This kind of situations you will encounter a lot while programming. So for this solution, you can do one thing. Either you can just make it optional, but sorry, make it named, but with required keyword. That is, this function has to return a value because it's a very simple concept. If we are doing any kind of mathematical calculation, the value has to be provided. So the required thing, make sure the value is being sent. Now, if I call the function like find volume, I cannot just pass value like this because it's a name parameter. It has its own name, which we can see here. Height can be 5, comma, breadth can be 5, and length can be 5. So if you notice here, it since it's not positional, I can call the value at any it's like any position because first I have called height, but there it was length. Then I call breadth, it was breadth, but last it was height, but I call length. Because it's a name parameter, we don't have to remember the positions of the arguments. And simply I will print volume value, sorry, volume spelling, volume. I will run and see 125. So since it's a named argument, there are we can call it by these names, and it's much more easier because it can be name, age, salary. We don't have to remember anything. Now it's time to use the final parameter, which is the default parameter. Now, in the same case, I'll just remove all this and I will write default parameter. In the same case, if it was not required, if it was like this, in that case, default means if the value is not being sent, then we will have this value instead. It's like length will be 1, height will be this, and breadth will be 4. So here, if I suppose forget to send length, then also it will the length will be 1. That is, let's make it 2 so that for the calculation you will see clearly. 2 into 5, 10. 10 into 5, 50. See, I haven't sent the parameter length, but it was since it was default there, you can the program doesn't get crashed. A good example is void profile, and also remember we can use positional and name parameter both at the same time, like string host is equal to guest. Here will be default parameter, and I will just simply print workshop is conducted by host. Okay, now if I call the function, now please concentrate because the first parameter is a positional. So I cannot just say workshop and this. No, it will show an error. So it's a positional. I have to write Flutter. And second one is named. So host will be suppose Google. And now let's run the program. See, Flutter is conducted by Google. But suppose if I forget or don't want to give the value or parameter of host, then it will not show any error and it will simply become Flutter is conducted by guest. So if you see an example of Facebook, you will understand there will be welcome guest, and after you log in, there will be welcome your username. This is a very basic example of using default parameters. So I hope you have understood the concept deeply. There, this is all what is required for the functions concept. Talk about object oriented programming. So this concept available in other programming language as well, that is Java, PHP, Python. So it includes the way how we see our code or how we organize our code. Object means whatever object is there in the real life. If you say a car or a student or a book, you can say these are all can be combined in their own respective classes. Let's see first what I mean. I will remove everything and then classes and objects. This is a topic we will be covering today. So suppose there is a data of string name is equal to Bill Gates. I'm just inspired by them. Then string college, you can say Harvard, I guess. Yep. And string okay. Int marks. It doesn't make sense to give marks to Bill Gates. Suppose 90. Now, this is the data of one student. That is why it's possible to just write it down like this and print it one by one. But what if there are many students? So obviously you won't just sit and write string name to is equal to Elon Musk like this, because it doesn't make any sense. Here, if you see, that is all the data name, college, marks can be combined into a class called student, and then we can mention these variables, or you can say properties, because when we are talking about object oriented programming, variables are known as properties and functions are known as methods. Both are same, just when it goes inside the class, their name has changed. Nothing, well, it doesn't make any sense to me, but on how why we call it like that. But you will understand. You don't have to think that much. So let's start. What is a class? A class is a blueprint or featured common to all its objects. Object we will understand in a while, but you can just from the definition only you can understand that it's the features common in all the data. So we just make it a separate class. Example, a student class. All students will have their ID and name. All students perform functions like study and play. So we can make it a class. In class, sorry, functions are called methods and variables are called properties, as I discussed earlier. That these are just interchangeable, but they are called like this. Let's create a new class of first class student int id string name, then void study print, suppose studying, and just void play print playing. So now the thing is, this class has to be outside our main function, and here it is showing an error because we haven't mentioned that this um, variable will be null or not. So since we haven't assigned any value, we'll make it null safety, because if we would have assigned like this, then it's a different situation. But right now there is no value being assigned. So you can just say if I have mentioned this class here, Until and unless an object has been created, it doesn't store any memory. So you might be asking, I have used the word object multiple times. Then what exactly an object means? An object is something that will assign value or access all variables and methods defined in a class. That is variables and functions, you can say. In our example, the variables are id and name, and function is study and play. So we have defined that those properties, but obviously in our application we have to do something to make use of the property, and there the concept of objects come into play. We had the student class, but now what if we want to enter a student detail? Then we have to make an instance of that class. Let's try it. We will just write var student1 is equal to student and then parenthesis. It is called like this. That is the object creation, you can say. Then you will see we can just write student1 dot, and then we can access everything. First, I will assign an ID like 1, and then student1 dot name is equal to Bill Gates. Now, if I print student1 dot name, and if I print it above, that is when we haven't assigned, let's see the output. See, first it's null because we haven't assigned the value. But then after, you can see if we wrote like this dot and then access the property, then we can assign that property a value. And if you want to access the function, you can directly say student1 dot study. See, now it will show studying, and I will just remove this. Okay, this is one object. That is, this is, now if you want, you can just create multiple student like this. Student2 object is equal to again object, and then student2 dot id is equal to 2. So now you might be thinking, or you can just see this assignment of value is little bit not clean, you can say, because we have to do dot this dot name. We can't write it again and again. So to tackle or to solve that thing, the concept of constructors arrive. So you now again you will ask, what are constructors? This is again a concept of object oriented programming. Constructors are just like functions within a class which will run before executing any other code in that class, irrespective of their position. I will explain it. As any other method has to be called, but even if we don't call a constructor, it will automatically get executed. It's, you might be thinking, what's going on? What is exactly a constructor? First, I will simply teach you how to define a constructor. A constructor is declared by writing the class name with a parenthesis. The class name is student, and this parenthesis is like this. Okay, so this is a constructor. And when I mentioned that it will be executed first irrespective of its position, if I write to this constructor at the last also now, then also, first of all, when we create an object, this will be called, and you can just see this and this are basically same when it, by their looks, or you can say by how it's written, they are both the same. And the second feature of a constructor is that a constructor is like a function, as I said, but it doesn't have any like this return type. They don't return anything, it can just execute within this class. So what we do most of the time is we assign a value. And first of all, I will just show a constructor and just write print this is a constructor, and sorry for this semicolon. And I will again just create one class, and now you see the code is written from top to bottom, but first of all this will be printed. From there only you can understand that a constructor is executed at the very beginning. See, this is a constructor, then Bill Gates, and then studying. So this is the meaning of a constructor. Just remember, it's the same name as the class name, and they don't return anything. You now you will ask me, so okay, I have understood the constructor, but what is the use of it? So mostly we have, before the use, we must know what is a parameterized constructor. Just like in a normal function, how we send parameter or how we send arguments, in the same manner we have to send an parameter to this constructor. So, and then that parameter will be assigned, that is the value will be assigned to the variable present in that class. Simply, here we were assigning it like this, but now onwards we will just send it, and then it will be assigned. Like, let's write the parameters at first: int id, and then string name. Okay, and then first thing will be this dot id is equal to, I will name it student id, just to, the names are different, and this will be student name. This dot name is equal to student name. Now see, now we have, it's mandatory to send that two value. The first will be, first is id and second is name. Now I don't have to mention here, and if I run again, you will see same thing. Because, and if you want to check, I will send 100, and then let's check the id. Say id. So this student class now can assign a value. This concept will be used a lot of time while building a real application using Flutter. Yeah, next example, you can just simply see if var student2. It's so easy now to create objects. Var student2, then 99, and then Mark Zuckerberg. And then I will just add student2 dot name. You will just see this is a constructor two times it's called because we are creating two objects. That is the main reason. So I hope you have understood the concept of classes, objects, and constructor. You just have to understand this much. More we will see where it is being used when we are in the Flutter. Now we will discuss about the next topic, which is what are generic types. Collections in Dart are heterogeneous by default. That means collections like list, map can contain multiple or values of different types. Just for example, again, I would like to remove all this so that we can understand this concept. Generic type. So usually what happens is, if we have a list of, you can say, user, then this list can have first string, that is mark, then second data can be a integer, and third data can be boolean, you can say true. Okay, so what happened is, we are using or entering multiple data types in that list, which is okay if that is required by that particular function, you can say, or particular task. The concept of generics can be used to achieve a strictness in the data types. That is, if we mention that this user list will only contain strings, then it it's make sure that there will be no error while we are building that application, because we don't want the user or the person who is using our application to just insert whatever data he want to our variables, because it will show an error if anyone tries to assign different value in that thing. And a generic type is declared simply using less than greater than, that is here list then string. It means this list will only contain string. Now I have to write Bill and then Jeff. See, now the error is gone because we are doing what is being mentioned in our program. Similarly, if you want, we can just use list of int marks is equal to 33, 44, 55. If I try to enter any string, it will show an error because the element type string can be assigned to that list type integer. So it's very convenient at a lot of times. And also we have discussed list, but what if there is a map? Because map used to be like string name then a value. Suppose who else is left? I will just like Tom, and then age we will write 22. We can write 22 if it's a normal, that is we haven't mentioned any type. But if you want to restrict it, then we can just write string will be the key most of the time obviously, and then the value will only be string. In that case this 23 will show an error. We have to give a string, that is suppose age adult. I'm just giving an example. In the same way we have used in list and map, generics can be used for anything such as class, function, object. You might ask me how function, that is if there is a function. I'm just not getting an example right now, but suppose if there is a function string or list, function name will be whatever, give add data, then it's the return type is a list. But what if we just mention list of integer here? So this return should only contain integers like this. So in while when you will see the real Flutter application, real Flutter code, you will see this generic type a lot of time. Now our next concept is about accessibility, which simply means usually if you are coming from another programming language, you must know the concept of public and private properties or variables or whatever function. So by default, all variables and functions are public and accessible to the object we create. Suppose there is a class student, sorry, class should be like this. So this int id 2 is accessible by its object, like student1 dot id. But if we want to make it a private, that means only within this class this data will can be accessed, not outside. So in that case if you can see this here, it's the issue you can say normally this is the issue of dartpad. But let's try and print, because in VS Code here you are able to see that ID, but when we will use a real programming language, or you can say when we are working in VS Code, this won't happen, because whenever we make any property inside our class a private property, it won't be accessed by its objects. So the method is just simply use underscore before the variable name. This is how we make it a private. And you might think no, it's not working here, but this is not true. This is some issue of dartpad, which will be solved when we are using any good text editor. But right now the only focus should be on understanding the concept. So yeah, we have done this portion, that is controlling accessibility, which simply means how to make a variable or function private within the class. The next concept we will be understanding is what is inheritance. This is another concept in the object oriented programming. So suppose we have two classes. You can just see in the slide there are two classes, dog and cat. Within the two classes, there are some properties or some methods which are common. You can say first is color and the second is eat. So if there is only one or two classes, then it's okay. But what happens if we have multiple classes and those classes also has those function, that is also cat and dog, okay, but what if there is some like bird, that those will also have a color and an eat function. So in that case we can just make an another class which will be the parent class, you can just say, and that class can be extended or can be copied by its lower classes. So you can just say we will make a separate class and put those common characteristics. Let's do it and try. Yes, right. Inheritance concept. First of all, I will write the parent class like animal, and then it will have string, color, and void it. Void it means this is a function. Now let's see, I have a class of call of name dog, and it will have a property of string breed, and second it will have void bark property. Let's make it null. Now what happens if I create an object of dog, var dog is equal to dog, like this, and then if I try to access dog dot, it will only show breed and bark. But what if we also want the color? In this case the concept of inheritance comes. Now we just simply have to write class dog extends animal. Okay, this extends keyword is used when we are inheriting. So now if I write dog dot, see, we can see color as well and eat as well. And if we want, we can just directly call the eat function like here, print eating, and now run. See, you can see eating. So here dog is called the child class and this animal is called the parent class, and this dog class is inheriting from this animal class. Inheriting means these properties and methods, it can be used within this class as well. So it's good, and this extend thing will be used in the Flutter. I haven't used that much because in Flutter everything they are already being extended internally. We just have to write the keyword and that's it. It's very rare that we will create our own classes and inherit them. It just depend upon your usage, that's it. So I hope you have understood the concept of inheritance, and then how to make a variable private, like simply this underscore, and the generic type. Generic type is used mostly with list, map, and other thing. So that's all for the object oriented portion of Dart language. We will be talking about exception handling. So if you are building any application, definitely there will be times where you will encounter some errors, or those errors in the programming language it's called exception. So you can just see the definition here. When a program ends abruptly or have an error, this situation is known as an exception. So definitely everyone knows that there will be an error, so it's better to handle it accordingly so that our application doesn't crashes. Now, what is this try catch block? So by the name only, you can understand that first let's try this block of code, and if there is any error, then catch the error and do something with it. So this is the meaning of this statement. Okay. Now let's try in our dartpad, because obviously it's good if we do it practically. Now let's have a new variable of year 2021, and then int 0 is equal to 0. So I hope you know that numbers cannot be divided by 0. So if we just write int result is equal to year divided by 0, then at present it will show infinity. But I will, okay, now see, a type of double can't be assigned to a variable of type int, because when we are dividing like this, the result will come in a decimal point. To avoid that, we will use this symbol. It does what? It simply gets the first value and removes the decimal portion. Now, if I run it in the console, you will get this error here. Uncaught error, unsupported operation. So you can see it's already mentioned here that it's an uncaught error. So now to solve this, we will use the try catch block, and it is written like this: first try, and this catch is a function, and this e will catch the error. You can say that error will be stored in this variable e, so that we can use and print it. Now let's try this and print e here. Okay, and we will just write. Now first I would like to write handled exception, then e, that is the whatever the exception it is there. So earlier it was red color, now see, it's a normal printer printing, not an exception. It's like handle exception and then unsupported operation. So this is the way how we write a code. For example, just assume in that try catch there is some database call, and obviously there will be times that suppose the server has some error, the internet is not working. In that case, we will catch the error and show some kind of dialog box or alert to the user regarding the same, rather than our application crashes, and this will be a very bad experience to the user. So you can see from the slide, this is how we handle an exception. Another example of exception can be having a list. So let's assume we have a list of marks, and it will contain 98 77. Okay. It will contain three value. So the index will start from 0 and end at 1, 2, 2. So what will happen if we try to print marks 3, which is not there in the list? So definitely there it should show an error, but the error is handled and see range error, index out of range. Index should be less than 3. And if I write 2, then simply it will print 77. And this catch block, obviously, since there is no error, this won't be executed. So I hope you have understood the concept of exception handling using try catch. When you will be working on a Flutter application, this try and catch block will be used intensively, because we will make sure no error, no situation should occur where the user should get annoyed and uninstall our application. So, okay, more of this we will learn in the Flutter section. What are static variables and static methods? So, if you heard about this static and thing, so it's again the concept of object oriented programming. Now let's have a class of student. So now I'm talking about static properties. So just remember there were instance variables as well. So what are instance variable? If we mention like int marks is equal to 0, this is an instance variable. Okay. And simply, if I want to declare a static variable, I will just write static keyword and then int, what should I write? User has marks. I will just write score. Just for example, this is static variable. This is static variable. Just with the name keyword static, it becomes a static variable. So you might be thinking, what's the difference? We will just come to that in a while. Now let's have a function that is method as well. Void increase marks. I should just semicolon marks plus plus, and same I will just write void increase score and write score plus plus. That is our instance variable. I will just remove all this. Now, in order to access an instance variable, we have to create an object. So we have already done that before. Var student name is equal to, this is an object, and after that, if I write print and I want to print marks, then I will just simply write student one dot marks, and this score I will just do it from 10, and I will just say plus equal 10. It will just be incremented plus 10 10, so that we don't get confused. Now, okay, if I run now, it will print 0. What 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 if I want to print the score? Then let's try with the object we created, student1 dot c. If I write dot, then score won't be accessible. It's not accessible because it's a static value, static property. To access that, we have to directly do it from the class name. That is, student is the class name, then dot, then score. See, so that's a very different approach or a different concept. You have to remember that if we want to access instance variable, then we have to make an object first. But if we have a static variable, Then we don't have to create any object. Through the class directly we can access the value. Okay, you have understood till now. Now I would like to do what? I would like to access student1 dot increase marks, and I will write student1 dot increase, sorry, student spelling wrong, student1 dot increase score. Okay, and then again I will just print the values here. So I hope you know what will be the answer. It will be then 1 and 20 down here, 1 and 20. Okay, now let's do one thing. We will create another object var student2 is equal to student. Okay, we have a new object. Then if I write print student2 dot marks, and then through student2 I will do increase score. Okay, that is the static variable, but I am doing it with the second object. So I, in your mind you might think, now if I again print the static thing, if I now print the static thing, then it should just have the score as 10 and then again 20 because it's a new object. Let's run, but you will just see the difference here. Say this marks student2 dot marks is 0, but this student dot score is continuation. That is, from first object we did some changes, from second object we also did some changes to a static variable, but all that, but there will be different objects but the value will be same. But in case of an instance variable it will again start from 0. So that is the main difference between a static and an instance variable. That is, instance variable will be called or will be initiated multiple times, but a static value will only be initialized one. Then after, the same data will be fetched from the memory. At least it will be memory efficient, because most of the time we know there are some data that which won't be changed in the class. Suppose there is a student, then the college name suppose won't change, or suppose there is a bank, class bank, the name of the bank or something which is unique and won't change. So we may not want to use the memory of creating it again and again. But in that case we use the static keyword. I hope you have understood that it's just the difference that an instance variable consumes more memory because with every object it is initialized from 0, that is from the beginning, but the static will just get be continued. The same value will be continued. Now you have understood static properties, that is properties. Now it's time you understand static, what it's called, method. Simply just write a static keyword before a method. That's it. But if you make it static, definitely it won't be accessible through the object. So I won't suggest to change this, but I will just have static void, or you will write static string college return word word. Okay. Now to access that, we simply have to just write print student dot college, like this. So just remember, this is not an object, we are directly accessing it through its class name. Object is this and this. These two are objects which can only access directly the instance variable or the instance methods. I will just write it here. It is instance method. This is instance method, but this is static method. So this was the logic behind the static and instance keywords. I hope you have understood and enjoyed till now. Now we are just about to end our Dart course, and after that we will directly deep dive into Flutter. Out of them, the first concept is called the ternary operators. So I will just write ternary operator. So you might ask, what is a ternary operator? It is nothing but a, a way to write if else statement. So you just know how to write if else, this if and then here else. Simply like this. Suppose I have a value int age is equal to 25. To here I will just write if age is greater than 18, print allowed, suppose, and then if not, print not allowed. Okay, so this is our normal if else statement. So you might be asking, what is a ternary operator? So ternary operators are used to just cater down the code we write, or to just make sure it's very clean when we write it. It's not like it's not taking too much space. It's like I will just write age greater than 18. If it's true, then print yes, else print no. See, this is the ternary operator. So I will just mention here again this and then this. I will run run the program and see we have the output yes. So ternary operator is a way to write the if else statement, and yes, you will be using it a lot of time because you can just see the difference with your own eyes. That is, it's just a one line of code, and earlier we have to wrote so many code to do the same thing. So it's just written like the condition, then the question mark. That is, if the condition is true, then what we have to do. And with this colon, it means if this condition is not true, then what we have to do. Simple as that. Now, this ternary operator is over. The concept is over. After that, our final and important concept is null safety. Earlier also you have used this null safety. If you remember, it was the question mark in the data type, which means the value can contain null as well. This null safety was introduced very recently. So if you go back 6 months back, or in the end of 2020, you can say you won't be hearing, or you won't be using this null safety because it was not in the production mode. It happened on 3rd March 2021. The concept of null safety was introduced officially. Earlier, when we declare any variable, it can contain value or can be left null by default. This may create errors when we run the app. That is why the concept of null safety was introduced. Now, when we declare any variable, it is assumed that it will not be null unless we declare using certain keyword, which we will discuss later on. Null safety was already activated. See here down, it was already activated here, and in Flutter, it is on by default. So you have no other choice of removing it. So, what was introduced in the null safety concept? There were some new keywords or operators. First is this question mark, which we have used before. We use it to denote that a variable can contain a real value or can be null as well. In this case, we already know that the value can be null, and we will handle that accordingly. There will be no scope for any unknown exception error in runtime, because earlier it was like there was a variable, suppose string, which will contain a user ID, and if that is null, then it will be a lot of trouble because we won't be able to fetch any information from our database without the user ID. So let's write it down. Let's write, if this string friend is equal to Elon Musk. Okay, then it's not showing any error. But what will happen if we write, if string is equal friend is equal to null? Now this will show an error because we cannot assign a null value to a data type of string. But if we know that this value may be null, then we have to use this operator. Now there isn't any issue. Either this friend variable will be null, or this friend variable will contain a string like this. So this is the use of the question mark keyword. So let's do it. Let's do some more thing. Suppose we have a function set friend. It will contain a name, and it will accept a name. You will just write name dot to uppercase, and we will call this function here. Just write Bill Gates. Let's run. I just made it wrong. Now let's run. Obviously, that function was written below, so that's why it was showing an error. Now, what will happen if we try to send a null value? In this case, now it will show an error because null cannot be sent to a string. But if we make it null safety, then this error will be gone, but the error will be here because if it's null, then how this function will be executed? Because we are saying that the name variable will be null, but again there will be error as we have some kind of function. To tackle that, we have to check here, if name is equal to null, then here only I will return the function and not execute below. So now this is a proper way of checking if the value is null or not. So this concept is very important, and there is another keyword to check if a value is null or not, which is this keyword question mark and dot, which will be used. Now let's see null. So it's checking whether this name is null or not. If it's null, then just print out null, or if it's a name that is Bill Gates, then what will happen? It will execute the function. So this is a better way to just check the null, what you say, if any variable is null or not. After that, the next keyword is required. This is a change which is being done in the code. If you remember what were named arguments, it were it were just like this and just a string name and print here name, it will show an error because the name can be null. So either we have to use this question mark to solve this, or we simply write required keyword here. Required, yes, this keyword, which simply means we have to send a value. We cannot just send null to this function. So that is the use of required keyword, mostly in the times where the values can be optional, that is in name parameter, or if you don't want to write required, then the other thing is just to give a default value, that is suppose guest, like this, and it will be equal. So this is a default value if the string name is containing null. I will just go and test and send null here. Sorry, it should be I at least string. Now if I am not sending anything, then it will be name, because I am not saying it will be null, but we can just make it optional. And if I write Elon Musk, then what will happen? Since it's a name argument, it should be like this. See, while we are programming, we have to just make sure we don't do all these kind of mistakes. You have to remember the difference between a name variable, name parameter, and a positional parameter. So I hope you have understood a little bit about null safety thing, because this concept is very much important. After that, the next keyword, which is this exclamation, to tell the compiler that we are very sure that the value will not be null. We are confident that variable will always hold a value, then only we will use this keyword. Let's try it of our own. Now, let's suppose we have this string new name variable which can be null. We have right here. And what will happen if I send this string to the myname function, which also accept a name parameter, which is a string. If I just write new name here, you will just see it will show an error because we are sending a string, that is a nullable string, to a string. But what will happen if we just give an exclamation here, which means we are very sure that this is having a value. So to make sure we have something, we are very much sure that the value will not be null in the future also, we use this exclamation. But remember, this exclamation is a very tricky thing, because if we are wrong with our thing, that means if we are saying that the value will not be null, and if the value is null, then we will have this kind of errors in our application, which is not good. So you might be thinking that it's too much to digest, but just have some patience, because definitely when we are in the Flutter course, we will understand all these concepts very clearly. So we have understood keywords like question mark, exclamation, then required keyword. Now the last change is the late keyword. It's very simple. This keyword is used when we are sure that we will initialize the value of the variable later on, which means no matter what, when the object of the class is being created, we will initialize, or we will make sure that variable is not null. So just remember, if you later forget to assign the value to a late string or a variable, it will show error. So if you have a class of student, we can just write late int id, like this, late int string name, and this means this id will be printed, will not be left null no matter what. So if we have print id function, just write print id, so then it's fine, it will not show any error. But if we remove the late button, see, then it will then there is an error because it's showing that first please have a value here like 2 3 like this. But using the late keyword we can remove this error and just say to the compiler that don't take this much stress, we know that this variable is important and we will make sure it has a value at the end of the object creation. So that's it. These were the concept of null safety.